Hello, everybody. This is Mallory Flowers on behalf of Jennifer Schaus and Associates, and we are coming to you live from Washington, D.C. And thank you for joining us today on our Webinar Wednesday series. Our webinars are held every Wednesday in 2018 at 12 p.m. Eastern Time and also at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And our speakers range from accountants to attorneys and other industry professionals. The full schedule for the rest of the year is on our website underneath the webinar tab. In the interest of time, we do not take questions, and our speaker's contact info is posted on the last slide. So if you have any questions, please contact the speaker directly. And the recordings are also posted on our website underneath the archived webinar tab, as well as on our YouTube channel. All right, this is just a quick blurb about us. Jennifer Schaus and Associates is based in downtown Washington, D.C., and we help both product and service companies with federal contracting. Our clients are domestic and foreign, defense contractors and civilian, and our services range from market analysis reports to contract vehicles, including the GSA schedule. We can also help you with proposal writing and post-award contract administration. More information about our services and upcoming events can be found on our website. So this is actually a list of our upcoming events for the year. You can, like I said, you can find more information about this on our website. So we're going to go ahead and dig into today's presentation, which is preparing for small business graduation. And our speaker is Heather Newlin, and you can learn more about her background on this slide. Thank you, Heather, for joining us today, and I'm going to go ahead and hand the floor over to you.
Great. Thank you, Mallory. Really appreciate the invitation to speak today. I am so thrilled to be sharing this content with your audience and look forward to the questions that will come afterwards. So just as a brief introduction, I have spent 20 years in government contracting and technology, mostly working for the large systems integrators in a general manager role, leading portfolio companies up to about $150 million. And with experience across the FedSid, defense, and intel industries, which are all, it's a little bit unique to have that broad of experience, but I was really lucky to get rotated a lot and have a wide variety of experiences. Currently, I am focused on helping CEOs and small businesses prepare for small business graduation. And that frequently means that they are looking to prepare for being sold or competing in the middle market. And a lot of times they also need boards to be established. So that's kind of my focus today. So back to the content, starting a GovCon business, after starting a GovCon business, the preparing for graduation is the next most important milestone in the growth of any government contracting business. The changes to both the business model and the market are risky enough that failing to navigate can place the business in significant jeopardy. So today we're only going to skim on the surface of this very broad topic, but I will send you to more resources at the end of the webinar. As businesses grow, they reach the point where they are too big to be considered small and yet too small to be thought of big. In government contracting, this critical point is when businesses approach small business graduation, either from their 8A status or when the revenues exceed the NACES codes that they operate within. Now, government contracting businesses planning to exit small business status need to behave differently than those intending to remain small. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Well, you know what you should be doing to prepare for small business graduation. What exactly is it that you should be doing? And how do you find the time to take on this seemingly insurmountable project? Next slide. So based upon my observations and the work that I've done with small businesses, here is a simple action plan to get you started. First, commit to graduation. Second, act like a large business. Next, develop a strategic pipeline, and finally, mature business operations. So while these 4 steps may seem pretty straightforward, accomplishing them can be a bit more challenging. So let's look closer at what needs to really get done. Next slide. Step 1, commit to graduation. The biggest roadblock to success that I've seen is a lack of commitment to graduating. You need to make a conscious, strategic decision to either graduate or not, and then hold yourself accountable for that decision by dedicating time every week to prepare the organization for the transition. If you haven't been able to avoid being distracted by all of the urgent work of a small business owner, finding an external advisor to help you stay strategically focused and on track for accomplishing the inch stones necessary to achieve your vision could be extremely valuable. Now, on the other hand, maybe you haven't been able to commit to creating a graduation plan because you're a little bit anxious that the business can't succeed without the protections afforded under its small business status. This concern is real as graduation is a significant business transition with significant risks. Rather than being nervous and delaying a decision, you need to get the data to make an informed decision about the best course of action. Your decision needs to be both data-driven and emotionally driven. Knowing your tolerance for risk is critical in developing an actionable plan that you can execute. Here are a series of steps to help you understand whether the business is positioned well to graduate and compete in the full and open market. Start with analyzing the market to understand what contracts would be awarded to your business without protected status. Then ask existing customers what they plan to do when the business status changes from small business to full and open competition. For example, do they have alternative contracting options for you? Or will your customers required to move on to the next protected business? Now, if they plan to stay with you, remain skeptical because frequently the good news that customers want to relay is in conflict with the realities of the acquisition environment. After this, work with your teaming partners to understand the value business delivers to them. How does a change in status impact your relationship? Will teaming partners continue to buy if they no longer receive small business credit? Would your partners now view your business as a credible threat to their own business? Next, assess current contracts and growth projections to predict when your protected status will end. And finally, start pursuing full and open contracts several years prior to your anticipated graduation date. Next, please. So based upon the information that you've gathered from the exercise above, can your business compete and remain viable without protected status? If it can successfully graduate, develop a 2 to 3 year action plan with achievable interim milestones, which you can provide concrete evidence of progress. More on this below. If the business is not viable without protected status, are there any actions you can take to make it viable? For example, assess whether your business development team and processes need to be enhanced to compete in the unprotected environment. Work to differentiate your offering. Identify ways to move into adjacent agencies. Find operating efficiencies to reduce the cost structure. Now, if there aren't any actions that you can take to make the business viable, can you strategically manage revenue to retain small business status? For example, only pursue new business that keeps the revenues below the thresholds, focusing on executing current contracts, assessing your current contracts for alignment with your corporate vision and strategy, and then exiting the less strategically coherent contracts to enable growth in areas that are really aligned with your vision. And if the business is not viable and graduation can't be avoided, how do you create an end of business plan? Estimating how long the business will remain operational, determining whether selling a contract is more valuable than executing on it. And it is also important to plan your personal finances and what you want to do next. So the following 3 steps will form the basis of the graduation action plan. Next slide, please. Step 2, act like a large business. The mental shift from protected business status to open competition is significant. Do not underestimate it. Starting early helps. So think of graduation as completing a marathon, and the sooner you put your running shoes on, the better the race day is going to go. Once you make the commitment to graduate, you will start thinking differently, including changes to your assumptions and the language that you use. Be sure to actively communicate the change process you are going through to your team in order to bring them along with you. If your communications aren't clear, your team will be focused on business as usual rather than maturing to your desired new end state. Messaging is very important as the entire organization will be aware that a transition is imminent. Employees will have legitimate concerns about their job security. One of the biggest changes will be how to position yourself in the open market. Using the information gathered from the questions posed earlier, start to formulate a new value proposition. Get really clear on the discriminators provided and the reasons your business should be awarded new contracts. You want to draft ideas and test them on your existing customers and teammates to understand which resonate. Also, begin slowly updating marketing materials. You will be surprised by the volume of references in your small business status embedded in your written materials, like your website and your slick sheet, past performance, and even LinkedIn. After initial assessment, determine when and how you'll update your externally focused materials. Will everything change in a single day to mark an official occasion? Marking an event can be very effective for creating a defining moment for the company and helping the team move through that transition. On the other hand, maybe you want to ease into the changes as each one becomes relevant. Either way, identifying the updates to be made and then making them is a big lift. Starting early will enable you to be thoughtful and strategic about the process. Paying close attention to bringing your proposal artifacts up to date is another item that you need to pay attention to. Draft overarching win themes, update your management volume and your past performance references with the new value proposition in mind. When you start writing full and open proposals, you want to be focused on the proposal at hand rather than needing to simultaneously rewrite the generic artifacts the team draws upon. Beyond the marketing materials, existing strategic relationships are also likely to change and new teaming relationships are needed. Based upon the conversations you've had with teaming partners to understand your value proposition, be sure impacts to teaming agreements and work share are well understood as you transition. Initiate the dialogue to establish new teaming agreements with existing partners based upon your new value proposition. Look for new partners in the new market being entered and to protect your base. Next slide, please. Step 3, develop a strategic pipeline. Review your existing contracts to measure the backlog by revenue per year and estimate when the existing backlog ends. Examine the pipeline to assess how well it aligns with the backlog to maintain or grow the business, and assess whether any of the pursuits will fall out due to your change in small business status. In the 1 to 2 years prior to losing protected status, be sure to pursue multi-year contracts under the protected status that can be executed even if the business graduates. The initial pipeline priority needs to be maximizing that backlog of protected business, especially with long duration contracts. In addition, work with existing customers to identify options to retain the work after the contract ends and identify new small business partners to strategically team with. The next priority will be bidding full and open contracts. First, leverage existing customers and teammates, and then look to move on into adjacent markets. This is a pretty broad topic, and so I'll be speaking more about this specific item of strategic pipeline at a webinar on December 19th. Next slide, please. And finally, step 4, mature business operations. Beyond the business development aspect of graduation planning is the assessment of whether the business is scaling to meet the demands of the larger organization. Part of the multi-year graduation plan needs to include the maturation of internal operations. An assessment of the organization's functional capabilities should be conducted to determine the appropriate steps and the metrics to trigger implementation. For example, a small organization frequently has the same person overseeing contracts, subcontracts, and procurement. What metric determines when these functions should be expanded and potentially separated? Here are some specific operational considerations as you're looking to graduate. Has the nature of the contracts changed sufficiently to require different contracts administration skills? Should the standard flowdowns from contracts to subcontracts be updated? Is the recruiting organization able to handle the staffing for the larger contracts being bid? Can the employee onboarding process be optimized to ensure cost efficiencies on larger contracts? Do the financial reports provide the actual cost data necessary to support bidding the contracts in the pipeline? Does your accounting system support a shift from time and materials to cost plus reporting? Do new rate pools need to be created to improve the competitive positioning? And will your data repository or IT system scale to meet the demands of a larger organization? Are there other processes that are sufficient today but not scalable for the future that should be gradually updated? As the business migrates from protected status to full and open, the structure and size of the contracts awarded will change. Strong past performance, including execution and customer satisfaction, will be even more important under full and open competition. Therefore, ensuring the business is prepared to deliver is critical to making the transition. During the capture and proposal process for these new contracts, rigorously identify risk to execution, and then, prior to contract award, implement their mitigation plans. In the contract startup phase, overwhelmed teams frequently ignore the effort invested in risk management, hence the need to identify and mitigate risk prior to contract start. Next slide, please. So now that we've discussed the 4-step action plan for preparing for graduation, here are the key takeaways. Plan for graduation at least 2 years prior, and ideally when the business is being established. Determine the value proposition and update the marketing and collateral materials to consistently reflect the discriminators being offered and the new company status. Align the pipeline to maximize protected status, retaining as much of the protected work as possible while positioning for full and open bids. Assess organizational capabilities, determine what needs to be matured as the organization scales and when the capability needs to be available. And ensure new contracts can be successfully executed upon award. Next slide, please. Scaling a business through small business graduation to successfully compete on full and open contracts is a challenging feat. As a small business owner, you've accomplished many big challenges in the past. So what's the big deal? Navigating challenges is not the biggest obstacle to your success growing for your business from protected status to full and open markets. The skills required to start a business are quite different from those needed to scale a business. The example I like to use is how Mark Zuckerberg hired Sheryl Sandberg as COO when Facebook needed to navigate their own growth transition. Each leader brought very different but complementary skills to that process. Leveraging the know-how of professionals with experience making the transition is a wise best practice. In particular, drawing upon the advice of your accountant, banker, and lawyer is an easy to implement initial advisory team. They frequently have seen government contractors go through this and have a wealth of lessons learned. In addition, in the early stages of planning, hiring a CEO advisor who can partner with you as you move through the transition can be an affordable way to keep you focused on incremental progress by creating accountability to an external third party. As the business gets closer to graduation, expanding the leadership team to include professionals with large company experience also makes sense. For more information on this topic, you can see an article I published on March 24th on LinkedIn, and if you'd like a PDF copy, just send me an email. So we're going to expand upon this topic of growth in my next webinar on October 31st. That webinar is entitled The GovCon Small to Large Business Transition Challenge and How to Grow Successfully. Next step. Next slide, please. So if you are committed to making the transition and graduating from small business status, Newport Board Group's Preparing for Small Business Graduation program, sponsored by the McLean Group and Holland & Knight, is a good opportunity for CEOs to work with their C-suite teams on creating their company's tailored graduation strategy with me as a facilitator. Over the course of this 6-month program, a small cohort of participants will hear from CEOs who have successfully navigated graduation, share their lessons learned around specific topics that each graduation plan should include, such as your value proposition, growth via acquisition, if and when to establish a board, and your corporate leadership team. Examples of CEOs confirmed to speak include Shyam Solona from REI Systems and Elma Levy from Dovel Technology, who both grew their companies beyond $100 million in annual revenue and are successfully competing in the middle market. In addition, John Hillen from GMU, who took COTR Defense Solutions through its initial public offering, is also speaking. The half-day monthly sessions combine outside speakers with time to work on your company's graduation plan. A series of assessments and questions provides the framework for translating the information from the speakers into specific action steps for your graduation plan. The early bird registration for this program is open through September 30th, with the program starting on October 12th and proceeding through April. You can get more information on the program and download a brochure and register at newportprograms.com. Next slide, please. Thank you for joining me today. Please feel free to reach out with any questions, and you can also check out the weekly videos I post on LinkedIn, which address different aspects of preparing for small business graduation. I look forward to speaking with you again at the next webinar on October 31st and to see you at the graduation program on October 12th. Back to you, Mallory.
Thank you, Heather. That was a lot of really great information, and thank you for everybody who joined us today. Like Heather said, if you have any questions, please contact her directly with the information you see on your screen. And at 12:30 today, we are covering category management, so join us then. And this concludes our webinar. Thank you, everybody.